Under new plans being considered by the Home Office, police could be given powers to shut the marches down. This week, an official review on political violence and disruption is set to be published. It will contain a series of recommendations for ministers on how the Public Order Act could be amended. Let's just have a look here. So this is a picture from the weekend. So this is one of the pro-Palestine marches in London. And actually the 14th, in fact, the 14th pro-Palestine rally in London since October the 7th. And the key word to look for here, because this was the anniversary of what is called the Nakba, or the catastrophe, the moment when Palestinians were displaced and the State of Israel was founded. So, in terms of the weekend, 7 arrests, say the Met. Offensive placards. 1 man arrested for carrying a coffin with offensive language. Another man arrested on suspicion of assaulting an officer. Then there's a counter-demonstration where an old man was arrested on suspicion of a provocation of violence. And the policeman, Colin Wingrove, in charge, said, "We made swift interventions." Is that enough? People say no. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. And here's the thought. This is the Public Order Act. Under Section 12 of the Act, police may look at relative cumulative disruption of a protest when deciding if you prevent it going ahead. That section of the Act is now under active consideration. Relative cumulative disruption. The thought is this. Could you say, hang on, disruption isn't just about physical argy-bargy. It could be more widely defined. It might be physical disruption, but also offence, upset, loss of business takings along the march route. So you could define it so widely, Nick, that you could effectively say these marches can't happen. What do you think?
I think the powers have already been given. The powers are already in situ. Suella Braverman in 2022 amended the Public Order Act specifically to accommodate Just Stop Oil. The oil protest, if you remember, they were gluing themselves to the roads and gantries and all the rest of it. So this legislation has already been addressed. The power is there. And, you know, when you're looking at interpretations, you use what's a literal interpretation? The cumulative, the correct words are, what is it? The relative cumulative disruption.
Yeah.
Bringing, the largest city in the world to a standstill 14 times.
Hasn't been brought to a standstill.
Wait a moment. And we're saying that isn't relative cumulative disruption. Of course it is. It's destroying businesses. And what's the purpose of it in any event? So what I'm saying in short is the power is already there. The legislation doesn't need any further amendment. It doesn't need any further interpretation. The police, with the Home Secretary, have power to stop these demonstrations, and they should be stopped.
But you're basically stopping people's right to protest.
No, I'm not.
And because you say, a business is affected.
No,
whilst there's, in Gaza, people are being killed, civilians are being killed in their thousands, and you're saying, well, the business is disrupted. I'll tell you something about this report.
Is it not to do with doing it 15 times? So yes, wrong? Demonstrate once, but not 15 times.
Why not 15 times?
Because it's not a peaceful demonstration.
It is a peaceful demonstration. The vast majority of these demonstrations, and I mean by over 90%, are peaceful. There's women there with prams. I've been to two of these. I've been to two. They're beautifully peaceful. Are you saying if the situation's ended in Gaza, they can end their protests? Until that ends, the protests don't end. I think this report, this report by John Woodcock needs to go in the bin because the guy's biased. He used to be he used to be a Labour member of the Friends of Israel. He's biased. He was funded to go and travel to Israel in January.
Can I just ask you something?
Lord Wolney, go on.
Do you honestly think that these demonstrations are going to make the slightest difference to Israel? Let me finish the question, please. To Israel's foreign policy? Or do you think Israel...
Does that matter?
Do you think Israel is going to do... You're saying these demonstrations will stop when Israel stops bombing Gaza.
Correct.
Hamas has said we will continue, and as soon as this stops, we're going to destroy Israel again. And our charter is we will destroy Israel and every Jew.
So in the meantime, Israel can go and carry on killing kids and women and innocent civilians.
Israel has a duty...
And apart from that, let's put that to the side.
You're not letting me finish.
We have a right to protest.
Hang on, guys. Let's pause, because...
This is about the right to protest.
Let him finish, and then I'll bring you in, OK?
Israel has a right to make sure it has lifetime security, and that is what it's doing, bearing in mind what Hamas has said. Okay. Now, what we're talking about here, I agree. Yes, everyone has a right to peaceful demonstration. But the law is in place. Section 12, as amended, says that if there is a relative cumulative disruption, then the police, with the Home Secretary, can stop it. You've just acknowledged that 10% of those people, I'm using your figures, causes disruption. Causes criminality. The police, in my view, are largely at fault because they are concentrating on crowd control.
Let Narinda come back.
Not dealing with criminality.
So, Nick, all I'm hearing, all you're saying is Israel has a right, Israel has a right, Israel has a right. We're not disputing that. What we're talking about is British law. And this report, which is by the bias, Lord Walney, and he is biased because he used to be friends of Israel, wants to bring about British law to stop our rights for the sake of Israel. We have a right to protest. These protests are peaceful. You cannot say...
Let me bring in a caller. Let's listen to Brian in Newport. Brian in Newport, what do you think? Do you think they need to sort this out?
Yes, definitely, because slowly but surely we're being held at ransom by these big groups doing this. The other thing is the money it's costing the police to actually sort these things out is unbelievable. And I agree with the guy on your panel that it's not going to make any difference to whatever war's going on. If we stand in the street and shout... That may not
be an issue. Listen, you sometimes march even though you know it won't change anything. But I take your point that those are police officers who can't solve burglaries. Susan in Lancashire, do you agree with Nick as well?
No, I don't. I believe that they should be allowed to demonstrate. We live in a free country, and when you look at the amount of people who are there, if it was as bad as they're making it out to be, there'd be far more arrests. But it doesn't surprise me at all that this government is trying to stop these marches.
Nick, I mean, the telling thing is that when I read out the arrest, it was just pootling numbers.
And I agree.
Like 2 or 3.
It's pitiful. And the reason is because the head of the Met is dealing this as a football crowd control situation. And I've heard from a former Home Secretary that is where the police are going wrong. They're not throwing their resources at anything other than controlling the
ban, charge them or something, or what?
No, I want people who are committing criminal offences to be arrested.
And you think they're not
being arrested?
Look at the figures. Look at the figures.
The vast majority are so peaceful. Have you been to any of these, Nick?
No, I haven't.
Well, I've been to 2. There's families there. It's actually a lovely family.
What offences do you think they're ignoring?
And there's a Jewish community involved in these.
Hate crime. Do you know how much, both from an Islamophobic perspective and an anti-Semitic perspective, how much hate crimes have gone up? The figures are massive as a consequence of these. There are prescribed groups here that are not being tackled by the government. They have been infiltrated, and the government needs to take action.
You're demonising the Muslim community.
No, I'm not. Absolutely not.
This whole report, not you. That
is not true.
You're demonising, you're gaslighting the Muslim community to bring about laws that are going to suppress our human rights.
Any laws?
That's what you're doing. You're gaslighting the Muslim community.
No, Narinda, I'm certainly not gaslighting the Muslim community. I have many Muslim friends who come to my house, so that's complete and utter nonsense. Any law that comes into place will go through the democratic process of Parliament. It's not just what a lord does who makes a report, you says he's biased. It's got to go through Parliament. He'll make recommendations.
Yeah, but the law is so flexible. It's like VAR. They can basically make it mean whatever they want. They can stop these marches. I think they probably can.
They can. And what I'm saying is the law is already there. The power is there. We have got a useless Chief of Met.
Why do you
want
the marches to stop? Like, why do you want
They're not achieving anything. I'll tell you why.
Doesn't matter. Civil rights, and they said that about the civil rights movement. They said that about the suffragettes. That's not going to achieve anything.
It's
not about
what
that.
What are they achieving?
Hang on a minute. Your argument is not that they're not achieving it. It's that they're causing hate. It's that they're causing hatred towards...
They're causing hatred.
Hang on, Narinda. Hang on.
They're causing hatred. They're stalling the economy. They're costing, up until January, we're now in May, it cost £26.5 million just to police them. That is in January. The taxpayers footing the bill.
That's a good point.
What is the point of this?
Can't that
money be spent doing something useful?
The strongest argument might be, you've done 14 marches, you've made your point, now let the police solve some burglaries.
I think that's a weak argument, actually, because I think that as long as our government is involved in arms sales to Israel, that's killed 3 of our British aid workers, then as long as things like that is going on, arms sales to Israel, then our people, as a British citizen, we have a right to protest.
Right.
And if the police have got to be involved in that, and it's a waste of police resources, then what can we do?
We're
selling arms. We're selling arms. So guess what? We are involved. Guess what? As a British citizen, we are going to...
Let's talk to Leon. Leon is in Brighton. Yes. Hello, hang on. Leon, hello.
Hello.
Do you think the police should use the Act in a little bit tougher way and ban the next march?
I do. It's a bit of a tough situation, but it's disrupting a hell of a lot of bus routes where I live.
Brighton?
Yes.
It's disrupting
Yesterday,
bus
the
routes in
buses
Brighton.
It was like terrible. It was like I was supposed to get my dog to go and be weighed at the the vet shop, like vets and all that, and I could not get him there.
Is there not, Leon? Is there an argument that says that what's going on in Gaza is more important than weighing your dog?
Well, not really. I mean, I'm not being funny, but the law states you're not allowed to disrupt people from movement.
Yeah.
And that's being done with the marches. I feel for Gaza, don't get me wrong. I feel terribly for them. But it's not going to help by marching in the streets of the UK. It's not. They're not listening.
All right.
And us marching's not going to make them listen any.
But Leon, until it affects you, then, because this is about your right to protest, this doesn't affect you, so you're not that bothered.
It does affect him. He's just said it.
Well, it doesn't, because he couldn't get his dog there. Did you actually get your dog to the vets in the end?
No.
Did you, Leon?
No, I didn't.
Right, so therefore, because you didn't get your dog to the vet, OK, that's a bit of a dilemma. We just stop all our protests and stop raising our concern about what's going on in Gaza.
You have to respect the rule of law, Narendra.
So, because we can't get the dog to the vet, we've got to stop the protest. That doesn't make any... It doesn't even... You can't even weigh that up.
No, I'm not suggesting you can, but I am suggesting you comply with the rule of law. And Section 12 applies to these protesters.
And
OK,
also,
let's pause there. Let's pause there. Leon, thank you. Glad to hear that worked out. After the break, we're taking more of your calls on whether police should have more powers to stop pro-Palestine marches. 020 7862 2222. See you shortly. Yeah, 86 league games at Stamford Bridge without losing, and then
86.
Yeah.
Wow. When was that?
It was it was the Mourinho period.
Right.
04 to 08.
The special one.
Say again?
The special
one.
The
special one, yeah. Narendra and Nick are with us this morning. Later we'll be asking if dangerous cyclists should face a driving ban. So if you're bad on a bicycle, you shouldn't be at the wheel of a car. Would that be a good idea? Now, more calls on whether police should be given powers to stop these pro-Palestine marches. Disagreement on our panel. James in London, what do you think?
Well, I think we're living in a police state. There's thousands and thousands of people dying in Palestine, and the majority of people in this country protesting against that. What's wrong with that? We've got gutless politicians that won't do a thing about it.
Nick can answer. What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it
we
is...
have a right
hang on, I'll answer your question.
Answer.
I'll answer your question. First of all, the demonstrations are not going to make the slightest difference to what's going on in Gaza and Israel. Israel will pursue its foreign policy for the reasons, I don't know whether you heard what I said earlier, but Hamas has said that we will infiltrate Israel again and murder more civilians, rape more women, kill more children the moment we have that opportunity. So Israel is going to continue until it feels secure. So the demonstrations are completely impotent insofar as influencing Israel's foreign policy. The other point is this. There is a rule of law in place, and Section 12, which has been amended to deal with when there is massive disruption. And what's happening now is that central London, 14 separate occasions, has basically been brought to a standstill. And the general consensus is that that is causing massive disruption on a scale that the legislation envisaged. And therefore, these demonstrations, they made the point, and I'm not against a peaceful demonstration. There's an awful lot of criminality within these demonstrations that are not being detected.
And it's not
and there are prescribed groups there that need prescribing, and the government are being very dilatory in the way that they're dealing with them.
If they need prescribing, they're not prescribed, are they? Right?
They are. No, they're not prescribed, and they should be prescribed.
Right, so they're not prescribed groups then? You said they're prescribed groups that need prescribing.
They haven't been prescribed.
Right.
They should be.
OK, it was quite a big difference.
No, you're absolutely right.
And Nick, they're not
you're
disruptive.
absolutely right.
They're not disruptive. I live in London. My life has never been disruptive. I go into central London. They're not disruptive. They're actually very well organised.
James, why not just say this is a compromise attempt by me? You've done 14. You've made your point. Let's stop now.
People in this country should demonstrate until this thing in Israel is finished. We have a right to demonstrate. And your man on the panel, well, what, so 35,000? We've got a government that's sending aid in one door and arms in another. Is that not a bit hypocritical?
Thank you, James. Shelley in Newcastle, hi.
Hi, I've got a few points actually, Jeremy. They need to stop because, one, the police, the cost it's costing, and I've been reading a lot of businesses that are having to shut up shop now on Saturday because the amount of people and the people that aren't coming into that part of London now. Can I just say as well, Palestinians voted in Hamas, this terrorist group, and the lady on the panel says all the countries against Israel. Can I just suggest at the Eurovision, this country, the people voted top for Israel.
The latest,
so the whole country
the latest
is
polls.
not against. And can I just ask the lady, she's wanting the war to stop. What's going to happen if the war stops? Because I think a lot of these hostages are already dead. What's going to happen? Because there was already a truce when Hamas went in. What is Israel supposed to do?
So Israel can carry on killing children and women. Should we just carry on killing?
No, answer her question.
How will you get...
What should they do if the war stops?
They've killed their women.
And now they've killed thousands and thousands of people in Gaza, thousands of women and children. Sorry?
It's disputed how many's actually been killed.
But there's still been thousands killed. It doesn't matter about the amount now. It's a lot. We don't know the exact amount, but thousands have been killed. So should we... So that's okay then.
If it was genocide,
so that's okay.
Why are they
hang on, Narendra, hang on.
telling them to move if it's genocide? Why are they telling people to move if it's classed as genocide? They wouldn't do that. You would shoot every single person you've seen if it was genocide.
They are bombing the
They're
hospitals,
not.
Universities, everything. Shelley, you need to do
because
some
that
more
is
research.
where Hamas's are based.
So have they got all the Hamas? Have they got them all? And will you just not create another terrorist group? This is not the answer.
Hang on,
Killing
let
people isn't the answer.
Nick come in.
There is a tunnel network that needs to be destroyed.
So you will kill innocent civilians.
They are...
And will this kill all of Hamas?
Narendra, let Nick speak.
Israel, unusually and bizarrely, in war, is actually saying, we are now going to target that. Please remove all the citizens.
They're going into
Hamas
Rafah.
are using them as human shields.
All right, let's go to another call.
Stop that. Honestly,
That is-
lies.
that is the truth.
Complete lies. You can't just keep killing innocent women and children. You just can't keep doing it. You're not getting Hamas. Where have you got all of Hamas?
No one wants innocent women and children
UN says
killed.
35,000 dead, by the way. Laura in Belfast, hi. Hey, Laura. No. Thelma in the West Midlands, hi.
Hello. I mean, I think we're straying off the point here. The question is, do we give police powers to stop the marches? I think we should, because it's costing an enormous amount of money and resources to police these demonstrations. They have made their point. I think maybe once a month, come out again just to remind us what it's all about. But at the end of the day, Israel will decide what it does. Obviously, we're trying to persuade them for a peace, a peace deal and everything. But at the end of the day, Israel will do what Israel.
It's very difficult, though. I'm imagining in law, Nick's the lawyer, but I'm thinking once you've allowed a march on Monday and the same people want to come back on Tuesday, it's very difficult to say you can't do it again because they've already done it on Monday. So you've said once you've given permission for one march, you've given permission for all of them.
Well, I mean, once a month, just to remind us of the situation in Gaza.
All right. Thank you, Sam in London. Hi.
Month, we're not saying never do it again.
I hear you.
But every weekend, it's the money is needed to solve other crimes.
Okay,
they
Thelma.
have made their point.
Thank you very much, Thelma. Sam in London. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
What about that?
Thanks,
once
Jeremy.
a month?
So I just wanted to make a point where you said that they've made their point. The protests have made their point. Yes, but what about hasn't Israel made its point? I think the bombardment, the killing, they're going back into the north of Gaza, where apparently they'd already defeated Hamas. They've gone back there. They've started killing, bombing the Jabalia refugee camp. These protests are important. It's symbolically important. The gentleman on your panel is saying that they don't do anything. Actually, they do. They put pressure. They put pressure on the government. The university protests have been putting pressure on the government.
Sam, he's probably right about...
America is funding this war. Okay. The USA is funding this war. If the USA stopped supplying arms and weapons to Israel, the war would finish tomorrow. So it's important for us who live in the West, who have the privilege to live in these countries.
Right.
We must put pressure.
I was only going to say that if the USA said, you better stop this now, and they're going to stop delivering some of the weapons, and Netanyahu's response was, well, we'll do it on our own then. And so that's just a sign that this idea that pressure will lead to Israel changing course is probably wrong.
But I don't think that's their point. Their point, look, Israel's going to do what they're going to do. That's what you're saying, Jeremy. But the point is, we don't want our government being involved. So that's what the protests are about. They're not saying Netanyahu must stop. Obviously, we do want that to happen. We're saying we don't want our government involved a second more.
You mean in terms of supplying weapons?
Correct.
Yeah. So if our government stops supplying weapons, and both parties have indicated they're going to continue.
But we don't want to be complicit. We don't want our country
They've heard of the
complicit.
protests. They've heard of the protests. And neither government, the Tories aren't going to listen, and the Labour government will continue to supply weapons.
But sometimes, if something bad is happening, you want your voice to be heard, even if your voice doesn't change anything.
If you look at the big
That's
picture,
a key thing in life.
There has to be peace in the Middle East, ultimately. And if you allow Hamas to behave as they have done, so if there's a ceasefire today, OK, and we're 6 months down the road and Hamas have got themselves back together again, they do it again. It's going to kick off. We need peace, permanent peace.
One more call, please. Laura in Belfast, hi.
Hi there.
So what do you think, Laura? On the marches, that's the key thing, the marches.
Yeah. So I fundamentally reject that police should be given more powers to curb them. They are peaceful protests. I think the key here is that there is actually a huge amount of, as your lawyer panelist has said, a huge amount of impotence in the general public. We are fully aware that our government, whether it's Conservative or probably Labour as well, will not change their policy. But there is a huge percentage of the general public that is absolutely abhorred by what's going on and the fact that we are complicit in that. So yes, we are probably not going to change our foreign policy, but we are allowed to have a voice and allowed to be heard. I mean, I'm not normally one to be mad on social media, but that's where a lot of the discussion is going on at the moment, of a lot of general public who are absolutely appalled by what is going on and the huge amount of censorship that is associated with that. I mean, a lot of the Western press is not reporting what is actually going on. Al Jazeera has been shut down now within Gaza and within Israel.
I do see awful stuff on social media, and I never know the source, and I never know what to believe and what not to believe. But if 10% of it is true, it's terrible.
That, but I also wonder at how much we are being told by the Western press as well. So, the other point I'd like to make as well
Laura, we've got to go to our break. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for all your calls on this.